What is up, everybody? Welcome back to We're on the Same Page. My name is Jamie. I have a frosted coffee because it is still ridiculously hot outside, but today we are going to be discussing everything that I read in the month of September. So let's get started. So first we're going to start with all of the audiobooks that I read in September. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is something that I actually brought up in my August library haul. A couple of these are also from my August library haul, so if you want to learn more about those books and you don't want to be spoiled from my haul, then I suggest that you check out my August library haul. It will either be in the eye or down in the description below. The first audiobook that I finished in the month of September was Little and Lion by Brandy Colbert. Now, I mentioned that I was reading this one in my August library haul, but I also mentioned that I didn't know how I was going to rate it, and ultimately I didn't put a rating for it on Goodreads. I knew that it was going to be low, but I didn't know how low I wanted to give it. It would probably be either a 2 or maybe even a 1, but I don't think it's even that low. Maybe just like a 2. I don't know. Again, I didn't put a rating on Goodreads because I couldn't make up my mind. Even though I wanted to give this book major credit for being incredibly diverse, it had a main character that had bipolar disorder, it had another main character that was suffering with depression and was dealing with the fact that her brother had bipolar disorder. She was questioning her own identity as in terms of her sexual identity, and she was experimenting with a couple of different partners and figuring out how to love and which love she was interested in and how far she wanted to go and what her limits were and exploring her new sexuality. And so I thought that this whole book was incredibly diverse. There was also one of the love interests, if I remember this correctly, that had a hearing disorder that required him to wear hearing aids, which I thought was interesting because I don't see many characters in literature that have to wear hearing aids. So even though I wanted to give this book major credit for having so many diverse aspects, I just didn't enjoy the story. I didn't relate to any of the characters. I don't even remember their names except for Little and Lion, and it's because they're in the title. There was also a love triangle. Well, it was more like a love, it's like a love squiggle. And I didn't like any of the people that anyone was ending up with, so yeah, it didn't get very high of a rating for me. Even though I couldn't figure out what I wanted to rate it, it would definitely be below a 3. The next thing that I listened to and finished in the month of September was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. And again, this one just sort of ended up being some sort of middle ground, like a 3 or a 3.5. It was sort of enjoyable, but I liked all of the characters. I thought they were fun. I liked the fact that there was not only a female-female relationship, but that there were 2 moms in the story, and that there were also, it was very pertinent because it covered around the time that gay marriage was legalized, and so in the book, like, her parents actually get married, and they're really excited about it, and it's so cute and adorable. I do agree with some people about the fact that it was just very, like, pop culture heavy, which some people will really enjoy, but sometimes it was like very heavily pop culture. And I also agree with the fact that in a couple of years I don't know if people are going to relate to this book as much because of how heavy pop culture it is, like 2016, 2017 pop culture it is. I don't know if that's going to translate 20 years in the future when we're not interested in the same things. It may be a cool like time capsule in terms of what we consider popular right now and what we valued. But I also agree with the criticism that maybe that was, like, too heavy. I also agree with the fact that the story isn't really, like, plot-based. It's a lot of character-based, but it's more focused on the main character, how she's dealing with finding love, and then, like, her sister and how she's finding love, and then her parents and how they're finding love. It's a very love-related book. So if you're not into, like, a really heavy love-related plot, then I would suggest skipping this book. But if you're into something like just cutesy and contemporary and you want to get through it really fast, it was a funny audiobook and it was really enjoyable to read, but it was just a middle ground. Then I read The Dark Prophecy by Rick Riordan, which is the second book in the Trials of Apollo series, and I am so excited about this book. Okay, I love everything that Rick Riordan has put out. Not everything that he's put out, specifically stuff to do with Percy and like the spin-offs of Percy Jackson. So the Percy Jackson series, the Heroes of Olympus series, and now the Trials of Apollo series. I think that out of all of them, the Trials of Apollo series is my favorite one. He's just such a sassy narrator, and whoever narrates the the audiobook, it does a perfect job. All the characters sound different, they're very unique and consistent, and Apollo has just the right amount of sass and also just the right amount of seriousness, because there is a lot of like stuff that goes down in this book. I actually got this book for the first time right when it came out over Overdrive, and then I listened to about like 50% of it to 75% of it, and then I had to return it to Overdrive, and the wait list for this book was ridiculously long. Like, it's not a unique thing, because a lot of Rick Riordan audiobooks, specifically in my area, take, like, the wait lists are forever long. I got it back, and then I just, like, binge listened to it. I was so excited to get it back. So that one got a 5 out of 5 stars for me, of course, and I am really excited for the next book. I don't know when it's coming out, I don't know what the title is, but I will definitely read it, and I think that this is one of my new favorite series, if not my favorite series, from Rick Riordan. I didn't have any graphic novels that I read this month, which was sort of a nice change, because I read a lot of graphic novels over the summer, and so even though it would have been nice to get, like, more books read this month through the reading of graphic novels, I just didn't pick any up, and I think that's fine. So I didn't have any graphic novels this month, but I may have some next month. I did, however, end up reading 3 actual novels. The first novel that I read in the month of September was Sourdough by Robin Sloan, and I have a full spoiler-filled review for it on Goodreads and also on my blog if you are interested in checking that out and hearing more of my in-depth spoiler-filled thoughts. I ended up not really liking this book, and that was really unfortunate because I loved Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore and I thought it was great, and I had really high hopes for Robin Sloan. Again, if you didn't know, I've done some tags in the past, and whenever the question comes up like who should write more, like what author would you like to see more books come from, I always say Robin Sloan. And so when this came out and it was like food related and also technology related, I was like, yes, bring it to me. I don't care if it's about dough or like bread and I can't relate to baking, like that's fine, just like bring me this book ASAP. And I just found it so boring and so slow, and I didn't connect to the characters, and I thought that the plot was really weird. I didn't realize before I went into it that it was a magical realism book. I just thought it was going to be like a contemporary, but it just didn't occur to me, and I think that that sort of like threw me off in my reading game. So I ended up not really enjoying it, and I gave it a 2 stars out of 5, but I was very appreciative to the publisher for giving me a chance to read it so that I could at least give my opinions on it. The third book that I read was Every Heart a Doorway and Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shannon McGuire, and I love both of these books. I don't know why I haven't gotten to these books sooner. I've heard everyone, specifically Thoughts on Tomes, talk all about these books for as long as I can remember, and as long as they've been out. And they're so short, so I don't understand why I didn't get to them sooner. But I love the concept of there just being this school for all of these kids that came back from all these different worlds, and how it dealt with like some really deep topics about like sexuality and parents wanting to put their expectations on kids of how they want to be, like people not fitting into their home and like what a home means. Like people found, all of these kids thought that they didn't belong in their worlds at first, and then they found those worlds to be their home and their actual homes that they had before they no longer fit into. And so I thought that both of these books were really enjoyable. I enjoyed the first book because of how character driven it was and how short it was, but how there was also like a considerably dark plot throughout it. And I really enjoyed Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I thought that it would be too dark for me because the Moors are like dark, like they are like vampire style werewolf sea creatures dark, but I actually really enjoyed both of them, and I enjoyed being able to see Jack and Jill's experience all the way like up until they got back home, and then be able to also know like how they were in Every Heart a Doorway. Needless to say, I gave both of these books a 5 out of 5 stars, and recently I saw Thoughts on Tomes haul a arc for the third book. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Up Among the Cotton Candy Sky or something to do with the Cotton Candy Sky. I am so excited about it because I didn't know that there was going to be another one coming out. Now, the last book that I read in the month of September was All Rights Reserved by Gregory Scott Katsoulias, and I have feelings about it. I wrote a whole spoiler-filled review for this one too, which you can see again on my blog and on Goodreads, and I'll link it down below, both this one and the one that I did for Sourdough. But this book may be my most disappointing book of the year. Like, it was just, I had so many high hopes for this book, and I had seen it around, like, from the moment that somebody hauled it on YouTube. I was like, I want to read that book. I am a huge advocate against book banning and censorship. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about. I've been in contact with the ALA, and last year I was a part of the banned bookathon, and it's just one of my own personal passions. And so when I saw that there was a book that had to deal with censorship and people's actions and how a whole society would run if it was not so unrealistically basically our world, but pushed like 20 years into the future where everything is copyrighted and trademarked, and the inside jacket seems so intense. Like, these people, if they can't pay and they speak or they move or they gesture or whatever else, their eyes get like stung because of these contacts that they have in them. They get electrocuted. And I was like, that sounds awful, but it sounds like such an intriguing book. And I also thought it was a standalone. This book is not a standalone. This book is a series. And I did not know that going in, and that made me probably dislike it even more. I have a whole spoiler-filled review about, like, why I didn't like this book, and it's really long. So, like, if you want to hear all my thoughts about it, go check that one out. But I just didn't end up liking it, and I was so disappointed by it that I gave it a 2-star out of 5-star rating. It just really disappointed me, and I was very upset by it. And those are all the books that I read in the month of September. Let me know what you read in the month of September. So I would love to know. I know that there are a bunch of fall releases that are coming out, came out in September, are coming out in October and November, mostly from last month and this month. But if you have read any of those, if you have read any of the books that I read, if you have any thoughts or comments about the books that I read or about anything that you read this month, please tell me in the comments below. Always, my name is Jamie. I'm so glad that we were on the same page, and I'm glad that I got to talk to you today. I will talk to you more later. Toodles!